The Valdrine Empire controlled the outer regions of space for over 3,000 years. They were powerful and feared across hundreds of star systems. Their military was the strongest anyone had ever seen. Their spies were everywhere. Their assassins were the most dangerous creatures in known space. People whispered about them in dark corners, afraid even to speak their names out loud. Commander Zethus stood in the Great Council Hall. His forearms were crossed as he waited for permission to speak. The holographic screen behind him flickered and showed a human face. The man had brown hair and gray eyes. He looked ordinary, like any other human you might pass on a space station. "This human is named Jake Morrison," Zethus said. His words came through a translator that changed his clicking language into something everyone could understand. "He used to work in human special operations. For the last 6 months, he has been attacking our mining ships in the Kepler belt. He has destroyed 17 of our collection vessels. More than 200 Valdrine citizens are dead because of him." The council chamber was silent. All eyes turned to Council Speaker Draven. He was ancient, his skin covered with scars from ceremonies performed centuries ago. He leaned forward in his seat and stared at the image of the human. "Just one human has done all this damage?" Draven asked. "We should send a battle cruiser. Destroy him and be done with it." Zethus shook his head. "That would bring attention from the human government. Right now, they stay out of corporate disputes. They let their citizens handle their own problems. But if we attack with military ships, they will have to respond. We cannot risk war with Earth, not yet." "Then what do you suggest?" another council member asked. "I suggest we send the 12, Zethus said calmly. The entire chamber erupted in surprised voices. The 12 were legendary. They were the Empire's best killers, each one chosen from different conquered worlds. Each one was a master of death. In 40 years of operation, they had never failed a single mission. Not one of them had ever been killed. Draven raised one clawed hand for silence. "You want to send all 12 of our best assassins to kill one human? That seems excessive." Zethus changed the hologram. Now it showed footage of destroyed Valdrine ships. Each one had been torn apart with incredible precision. Metal was cut in exact places. Reactors were disabled without exploding. It was the work of someone who understood their ships better than most Valdrine engineers. "I have studied this human very carefully," Zethus explained. "He is not like other humans. Their military has special soldiers they call apex predators. These are humans who are exceptionally dangerous. I believe we should treat Jake Morrison the way we would treat a Krell war chief or a Mordian hive queen. With overwhelming force and no chances taken." The council voted. Every member agreed. The 12 would be sent to kill Jake Morrison. Far away on a mining station that orbited the blue planet Neptune, Jake Morrison sat in his small shuttle. The cockpit was cramped and filled with equipment he had modified himself. He was looking at data he had stolen from the last Valdrine ship he destroyed. The information made him angry. The Empire had been mining asteroids that belonged to independent human colonies. When colonists protested or tried to stop them, the Valdrine simply killed them. They destroyed entire colony ships and claimed it was accidents or equipment failures. Jake's hands tightened on the datapad until his knuckles turned white. His younger sister Linda had been on one of those colony ships. She had been 23 years old, studying to be a botanist. She wanted to grow food in space, to help the colonies become self-sufficient. The Valdrine had killed her along with 400 other innocent people. Jake had served in the human military for 12 years. He had fought in 3 different conflicts. He had seen friends die. He had killed enemies. When his service ended, he thought he was done with war. He wanted a quiet life, maybe working on a freight ship or teaching combat techniques to security personnel. Then Linda died. Jake went through official channels. He filed reports with the government. He contacted the military. He even hired lawyers. Everyone gave him the same answer. Starting a war over a few hundred dead colonists was not worth it. The politicians said they needed to maintain good relations with the Valdrine Empire. Trade was more important than justice, so Jake made a different choice. If the government would not give his sister justice, he would do it himself. A soft beeping sound broke through his thoughts. Jake looked at the sensor panel and his eyes narrowed. 12 ships were approaching his position. They were coming from different directions, trying to surround him. Their stealth systems were good, but not perfect. Jake's modified sensors could still detect them. So they finally decided I was worth their attention, Jake said quietly to himself. He pulled up the weapons panel and began checking his systems. He had been expecting this. The Valdrine Empire had been sending regular security ships for months. Jake had destroyed them all. He knew eventually they would send something more dangerous. He had prepared for this day. Jake activated several programs he had spent weeks creating. The old mining station around him came to life. Construction drones that had been dormant for years suddenly powered up. They launched themselves into space, dozens of them, each one carrying magnetic nets and welding equipment. Then Jake did something unexpected. He smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had been waiting for a fight. The Valdrine assassins were coming. They thought they were hunting him. They thought their training and their technology made them superior. They were about to learn a hard lesson. Humans were not the strongest species in space. They were not the fastest or the toughest. But they had something else. They had stubbornness. They had creativity. And when you killed someone a human loved, they became something more dangerous than any alien warrior. They became relentless. Jake Morrison was done being hunted. He had set his trap. He had prepared his battlefield. Now it was time to show the Valdrine Empire what happened when they underestimated a human who had nothing left to lose. The 12 assassins were still approaching, confident and professional. They had no idea they were flying into a nightmare. They had no idea that the prey they were hunting was actually a predator. Jake checked his weapons one more time. Everything was ready. He took a deep breath and prepared to do what he did best. He was going to survive, and he was going to make sure the Valdrine Empire regretted every decision that led to this moment. The battle was about to begin. The 12 arrived in Neptune's orbit like silent ghosts. Each assassin flew a custom ship built specifically for their unique abilities in biology. They immediately established a secure communication network, sharing sensor data and coordinating their attack pattern. They moved like professionals who had worked together for years. First Blade Corax took command of the operation. He was a massive reptilian warrior from the planet Sarcos Prime. His species were known for their strength and their skill in close combat. His deep voice rumbled through the communication channel that connected all 12 ships. "Target is stationary in grid 774, Corax announced. "Shadow Wing team, begin your approach from the north. Night Stalkers establish a perimeter around the station. Nobody gets in or out. We will close the trap on my signal." The other assassins acknowledged the orders. They had hunted dangerous targets across the galaxy. They had killed political leaders, military commanders, and even other assassins. This was just another mission. Just another target who would soon be dead. Jake Morrison watched them approach on his sensor screens. He had spent 12 years in the military. He had fought alongside some of the best soldiers humanity had ever produced. He had also fought against skilled enemies. He knew what professional soldiers looked like when they moved. These assassins were the real thing. They were not like the security teams he had been fighting. These were trained killers. He activated the first trap he had prepared. The mining station suddenly came alive. Ancient construction drones that had been powered down for decades suddenly activated. They launched themselves toward the approaching assassin ships. There were dozens of them, each one trailing magnetic nets and wielding industrial welding torches. "Debris incoming," shouted Vex. She was a Mandalorian pilot with reflexes enhanced by neural implants. Her ship twisted and turned through space, dodging the first wave of drones, but 2 of them managed to attach themselves to her hull with their magnetic clamps. "I am tagged. I need assistance. Disengage and fall back to position 2, Corax ordered. But Jake Morrison was already moving. His shuttle had been hiding on the underside of the mining station, magnetically clamped to the hull where their sensors could not detect it. Now it dropped free and accelerated hard. The small ship shot forward, moving faster than the assassins expected. Jake flew past Vex's entangled ship. A single missile launched from his shuttle. It was not aimed at Vex's ship. Instead, it targeted the construction drones attached to her hull. The explosion was small and precise. It destroyed both drones instantly, but the blast also sent Vex's ship spinning out of control. Before she could stabilize her craft, Jake's shuttle was right beside her. A modified mining laser, normally used to cut through asteroids, punched through her cockpit canopy. Vex died instantly. She did not even have time to send a distress signal. Jake's voice came through on their communication frequency. All 11 remaining assassins heard him clearly. 1 down. 11 to go. Then his shuttle accelerated again and disappeared into the rings of Neptune. The ice and rock particles made sensor tracking almost impossible. Jake knew these rings. He had been hiding here for months. This was his territory. Corax felt something strange in his chest. It took him a moment to recognize the feeling. It was uncertainty. In 20 years of killing, he had never felt uncertain about a mission. But this human had just killed one of the 12 in less than 30 seconds. New formation, Corax commanded. Activate full combat protocols. This target knows we are here. He has prepared for us. Treat him as an alpha-level threat. The remaining 11 assassins spread out. They activated their best weapons and their most advanced sensors. The hunt continued, but something had changed. They were no longer sure they were the hunters. Over the next 3 days, Jake Morrison proved exactly what kind of threat he was. Corax decided to use his greatest strength. He was a warrior, trained in close combat since childhood. He tracked Jake to a network of ice caves inside one of Neptune's larger moons. Corax left his ship and pursued Jake on foot, his ceremonial blade in his hands. The caves were tight and twisted. Corax's large body barely fit through some passages, but he was confident. He could hear the human ahead of him. He could smell the human's sweat and fear. The chase continued deeper into the moon. Then the first explosion happened. Jake had rigged the cave system with charges. The tunnel behind Corax collapsed. He tried to retreat, but another explosion sealed that path too. He was being herded, pushed deeper into the caves toward a specific location. Corax realized the trap too late. He emerged into a large chamber and saw Jake Morrison standing on the far side. The human was holding a detonator. "Your size is your weakness down here," Jake said calmly. "I can fit through passages you cannot. I can move faster. I can escape." "You cannot!" Corax roared and charged forward, his blade raised. Jake pressed the detonator. The entire chamber exploded. Industrial mining charges designed to break apart solid rock detonated all around Corax. The massive warrior was consumed by fire and falling stone. When the dust settled, there was nothing left but pieces. Rin was next. She was the stealth specialist, a creature that could bend light around her body and become almost invisible. She had assassinated 17 high-value targets without ever being detected. She was confident she could kill this human easily. She tracked Jake to a debris field in Neptune's shadow, where sunlight never reached. It was perfectly dark, perfect for her abilities. She approached his shuttle silently, her form invisible even to advanced sensors. Then a flare ignited. It was incredibly bright, like a small sun appearing in the darkness. Rin's adaptive camouflage was designed to bend light around her. But there was too much light. Her biology could not handle it. Instead of making her invisible, the intense light was magnified by her skin. She was blinded and disoriented. Jake's voice came from somewhere nearby. "Your mistake was assuming I fight fair." A single shot followed. Rin fell, still unable to see, still confused about what had happened. Krakus was the demolitions expert. He was careful and methodical. He found Jake's shuttle parked near an abandoned fuel depot. He spent 6 hours carefully placing explosives around the ship. When Jake returned and tried to launch, the bombs would destroy him. Except Jake had already found the explosives. He had disabled them and reprogrammed them. When Krakus returned to his own ship, confident his trap was set, his own weapons were waiting for him. The explosion was visible from 3,000 kilometers away. In just 3 days, 4 of the 12 were dead. The remaining 8 assassins gathered in a secure location to reassess their strategy. They were the best killers in the Empire. They had never failed before. But this one human was picking them apart one by one. "He is using our tactics against us," said one of the assassins. "He is isolating us and eliminating us individually." "Then we stay together," another suggested. "We attack as one unit. He cannot fight all of us at once," but they were wrong. Jake Morrison had studied them. He knew their strengths and their weaknesses, and he was just getting started. The hunter had become the hunted, and the Valdrine Empire was about to learn a very expensive lesson about underestimating humans. 3 days after Krakus died, a package arrived at the Valdrine High Council chambers. It came through automated courier service marked as diplomatic material. This meant it would not be scanned or inspected. Security protocols required that diplomatic packages be delivered directly to the council. When Commander Zethus opened the container in front of the assembled council members, he froze. Inside were biological remains preserved in stasis gel. The genetic markers identified them clearly. These were pieces of Vex, Corax, Rin, and Cracus. 4 of the 12 were confirmed dead. There was also a data chip in the package. Draven ordered it to be played immediately. The holographic display activated and showed footage from what appeared to be helmet cameras. The council watched in complete silence as Jake Morrison systematically killed their elite assassins. The footage of Corax was particularly disturbing. It showed the massive warrior charging through the ice caves, confident and powerful. Then the explosion started. The camera showed Corax's final moments as he realized he was trapped. He charged at Jake anyway, roaring his war cry. The final explosion consumed everything. The footage cut to black. Rin's death was shown next. The council saw her approach, nearly invisible in the darkness. Her stealth technology was perfect. Then the flare ignited. The sudden brightness overloaded her camouflage. The council could see her confusion, her pain as she stumbled blindly. Then a single shot ended her life. The footage of Cracus showed him carefully placing explosives around Jake's shuttle. He worked for hours making sure everything was perfect. The council watched him return to his ship, satisfied with his work. Then his own ship exploded around him. His own weapons had killed him. The final section of footage showed Jake Morrison himself. He looked directly into the camera he had taken from Corax's armor. His face was covered in frost and dried blood. His eyes were cold and hard, but his voice was calm when he spoke. "You killed my sister. You killed hundreds of people whose only crime was wanting to live free. I gave you evidence of your crimes. I gave you a chance to face justice through proper channels. You ignored me. You sent assassins instead. So now I am sending a message to every corporate empire that thinks human lives are cheap. We remember our dead. We honor them. And we will have our justice one way or another." The transmission ended. The council chamber was silent for a long moment. "What about the other 8 assassins?" Draven finally asked. His voice was shaking slightly. "Do we have any contact with them?" Zethus checked his command tablet. His 4 hands were trembling. "No contact for 72 hours, Speaker. I have tried every communication channel. There is no response from any of them." "What does that mean?" another council member asked. "It means they are already dead," Zethus said quietly. "We are simply waiting for Morrison to send us the proof." Draven slammed his fist on the table. "This is impossible. The 12 are the best assassins in known space. One human cannot defeat all of them." "Clearly he can," Zethus replied. "I warned you that humans were dangerous. I told you to treat this seriously. But even I underestimated what he was capable of." Over the next 2 weeks, more packages arrived at various Valdrine stations across the Outer Arm. Each one contained remains and footage. Each one showed another failure. The psionic twins arrived next. Mira and Kale were from a species that could share thoughts across vast distances. They could coordinate perfectly, knowing what the other was thinking without needing to communicate. They had used this ability to execute dozens of successful assassinations. They were considered unstoppable when working together. They coordinated a pincer attack on Jake's position. Mira approached from above while Kale came from below. They shared thoughts constantly, adjusting their approach in real time. It should have been perfect, but Jake had captured Valdrine communication equipment from the ships he had destroyed. He had studied how it worked. When the twins got close, he broadcast a specific frequency designed to interfere with psionic abilities. The feedback was instant and devastating. Mira and Kale both screamed as their mental connection was flooded with noise and pain. They lost control of their ships. They could not think clearly. They could not coordinate. Jake's weapons found them easily. The footage showed their ships exploding one after the other. The shapeshifter called Whisper was incredibly dangerous. She could take the form of any creature she studied. Her transformations were perfect down to the genetic level. She had infiltrated secure facilities by replacing key personnel. Nobody ever suspected her. She took the form of a human freighter captain that Jake had been known to trade with occasionally. The transformation was flawless. She approached his shuttle, broadcasting friendly signals, asking for a meeting to discuss business. Jake shot her ship the moment she came into range. The footage showed Whisper in her human form, confused and dying. Her body shifted between different shapes as her control failed. Jake's voice came through clearly on the recording. "You got everything right except one thing," he said. Humans who live in space for years develop a specific smell. Recycled air, protein paste, metal and oil. You smelled like flowers and fresh air. You smelled wrong. Nice attempt, but not good enough. Commander Trell was a veteran warrior with over 100 confirmed kills. He had fought in actual wars, leading troops into battle. He believed in honor and direct combat. When he found Jake's position, he broadcast a challenge. He wanted single combat warrior to warrior. Jake accepted the challenge. Trell was pleased. He prepared his weapons and his armor. He said prayers to his gods. He was ready for an honorable duel. Jake shot him from 3 kilometers away with a modified railgun. The footage showed Trell's body being thrown backward by the impact.
Jake's voice came through one more time.
I am a soldier, not a samurai. Honor does not bring back the dead. Honor does not feed hungry colonists. I fight to win, nothing else. By the time the 8th package arrived, panic had spread through the Valdrine military. Ship crews refused missions to the Outer Arm. Officers requested transfers to other sectors. The Empire's reputation for invincibility was crumbling. 3 battle cruisers were finally dispatched to Neptune, despite the political risks. They were ordered to find and destroy Jake Morrison at any cost. But when they arrived, they found nothing. Jake had vanished. The mining station was abandoned. There was no trace of him anywhere in the system. Then the final packages arrived. But these did not go to military installations. They were sent directly to civilian news networks across Valdrine space. The footage was broadcast before government authorities could stop it. Millions of Valdrine citizens watched as their empire's best assassins were systematically destroyed by a single human. The last footage showed the final 4 assassins cornering Jake in an abandoned human colony on Triton, one of Neptune's moons. The remaining killers had finally learned to work together. They coordinated their attack perfectly. They overwhelmed Jake with firepower from multiple directions. The footage showed Jake taking hits. His armor sparked and failed. He went down apparently wounded and unable to continue fighting. The 4 assassins approached carefully, weapons ready to finish him. Then Jake triggered the colony's fusion reactor. The explosion was massive, consuming everything within 2 kilometers. All 4 assassins died instantly, vaporized by the blast. But there was more footage. An external camera showed a small escape pod, launching from the colony just before the explosion. Jake Morrison sat inside, wounded but very much alive. He looked into the camera one final time. This is what happens when you mistake mercy for weakness, he said. I gave you every chance to walk away. I gave you every opportunity to face justice properly. You chose violence instead. Remember this moment when you think about coming after humans again. We protect our own. We never forget our dead. And we will always, always find a way to survive. The broadcast ended. Across Valdrine space, citizens stared at their screens in shock. Their mighty empire had sent 12 of the best assassins in the galaxy to kill 1 human. All 12 were dead. The human was alive. The galaxy would never look at the Valdrine Empire the same way again, and they would never underestimate humans again. The aftermath of the broadcast was catastrophic for the Valdrine Empire. Within hours, the footage of Jake Morrison defeating the 12 had spread across hundreds of star systems. Species that had been conquered by the Valdrine watched the videos over and over. They saw proof that the Empire was not invincible. They saw that even the best Valdrine warriors could be defeated. Rebellion started almost immediately. 3 client species declared independence within the first week. The Krell, a powerful military race that had been watching the Valdrine borders for years, began massing their fleets. They sensed weakness. They smelled blood in the water. The Valdrine stock market collapsed. Companies that depended on the Empire's reputation for strength lost billions in value overnight. Trade agreements were canceled. Diplomatic relationships became strained. Allies started questioning whether the Valdrine were worth supporting anymore. Commander Zethus stood before the High Council once more. But this time he was not presenting a plan. He was defending himself against accusations of incompetence and failure. Council Speaker Draven's fury was terrible to witness. The ancient leader's voice shook the chamber. You assured us this human could be eliminated quietly, Draven shouted. You told us the 12 were sufficient. You promised there would be no political consequences. Instead, we are facing the worst crisis in 300 years. Our reputation is destroyed. Our enemies are emboldened. Our economy is failing. What do you have to say for yourself? Zethus stood straight despite his fear. I underestimated Jake Morrison specifically and humans in general. I accept full responsibility for this failure. That does not help us now, another council member said. The damage is done. How do we repair it? Zethus had spent the last 2 weeks researching. He had studied human history and human psychology. He had read their military manuals and their cultural texts. He had tried to understand what made them so dangerous despite their physical limitations. I have been investigating human nature, Zethus said. I have learned something important. Humans are persistence hunters, Speaker. On their homeworld, they were not the strongest predators. They were not the fastest. They did not have natural weapons like claws or fangs, but they had one advantage that made them the dominant species on their planet. What advantage? Draven asked impatiently. They never give up, Zethus explained. Human hunters would chase prey for days, sometimes weeks. They would follow their target across vast distances. They would track through any terrain, any weather. The prey would run until it was exhausted. Then the humans would kill it. They won through sheer relentlessness. Zethus changed the holographic display to show footage of Jake Morrison again. That is what Morrison did to the 12. He did not fight them with honor or according to any rules. He simply refused to give up. He used every advantage he could find. He fought dirty when necessary. He set traps. He used their own strengths against them. And he never ever stopped until they were all dead. The council chamber was quiet. The members were beginning to understand the scope of their mistake. We treated this like a simple assassination. Zethus continued. We thought overwhelming force would be sufficient. But Morrison did not care about our force. He cared about his sister and the other colonists we killed. That emotional drive made him more dangerous than any warrior. He had nothing to lose and everything to fight for. Where is Morrison now? Draven asked quietly. Unknown, Zethus admitted. The human government claims they have no knowledge of his location or his actions. They released a public statement saying he was a rogue operative acting without authorization. But I believe they are lying. Why? Because Morrison has done what their government wanted but could not do officially. He has made us afraid of humanity. He has proven that attacking human civilians has severe consequences. He accomplished this without costing the human government a single diplomatic favor or military resource. They are undoubtedly pleased with the results even if they must publicly condemn his actions. Draven leaned back in his seat, looking older than his centuries. What about the evidence Morrison gathered? The proof of our illegal mining operations. It has been submitted to the Galactic Trade Commission, Zethus said. They are reviewing it now. We will likely face sanctions and fines. Several member species are calling for our removal from the commission entirely. Another council member spoke up. Can we not simply deny everything? Claim the evidence is fabricated? Morrison's evidence is too detailed and too accurate, Zethus replied. He has ship logs, communication records, and sensor data. He even has testimony from Valdrine crew members he captured and released. The evidence is irrefutable. Draven closed his eyes in frustration. Centuries of careful expansion and empire building were being undone, all because they had decided some human colonists were not important enough to worry about. What do you recommend we do now? Draven asked. Complete withdrawal from all human space, Zethus said immediately. We abandon every mining operation, every trade post, every installation within or near human territory. We make a public apology for the deaths of the colonists. We pay reparations to the families. We do everything possible to show humans that we have learned our lesson. That makes us look weak, a council member protested. We already look weak, Zethus said bluntly. The entire galaxy watched one human kill our best assassins. We cannot look weaker than we already do, but we can look smart. We can show that we learn from our mistakes. We can demonstrate that we respect strength when we encounter it. Draven thought for a long moment. Finally, he nodded. Very well. Issue the orders. Complete withdrawal from human space. No more operations targeting human assets. We leave them alone. What if they come after us? Someone asked. What if they decide to expand into our territory? Then we will deal with that problem when it happens, Draven said tiredly. But I suspect humans are not interested in conquest. Morrison could have continued killing our people. He could have attacked our civilian stations or our trade ships. But he stopped after the 12 were dead. He made his point and withdrew. That suggests humans want justice, not war. Zethus nodded in agreement. I believe you are correct, Speaker. Humans are dangerous when provoked, but they are not naturally aggressive. They want to be left alone to build their colonies and live their lives. If we give them that, I think this conflict can end. The council session ended. Orders were transmitted across the Empire. Every Valdrine operation in or near human space began shutting down. Ships were recalled. Stations were abandoned. The great Valdrine Empire was retreating, all because of one human with a grudge. Far away, on a small medical station near the edge of explored space, Jake Morrison lay in a hospital bed. His injuries from the Triton explosion were serious but not life-threatening. Doctors had spent days putting him back together. He would recover, though he would carry scars for the rest of his life. His former commanding officer visited him. Colonel Henry Blake was a stern man in his 60s with gray hair and hard eyes. He had led Jake's unit for 6 years before Jake retired. He sat down beside the hospital bed and studied Jake carefully. "You have caused quite a situation, Jake," Blake said quietly. "The politicians do not know whether to give you a medal or put you in prison." "I figured they would be upset," Jake replied. His voice was rough from smoke damage. "What are they going to do?" "Nothing officially," Blake said. "The government is releasing statements saying you acted without authorization. They are claiming you are a rogue operative. They are distancing themselves from your actions as much as possible. And unofficially," Blake smiled slightly, "unofficially, you have accomplished what 3 years of diplomatic negotiations could not. The Valdrine are withdrawing from all disputed territories. They are paying reparations to the families of dead colonists. They are scared of us now." "You did that?" Jake stared at the ceiling. "Linda deserved better than this. She deserved justice through proper legal channels." "She got justice," Blake said. "Not the way anyone wanted, but she got it. The Valdrine are being punished. The colonies are safe. Your sister did not die for nothing." There was silence for a moment. Then Blake stood up. "There is a ship waiting for you when you are healed. New identity, clean records, enough credits to live comfortably anywhere you want. That is the deal. You disappear completely and we pretend this never happened. And if I do not want to disappear?" Blake's expression hardened. "Then you are a criminal who murdered Valdrine citizens without authorization. We will have to arrest you and put you on trial. The government cannot officially support what you did, Jake, you know that. So you have a choice. Be a ghost or be a prisoner." Jake thought about his sister. He thought about the 400 colonists who died with her. He thought about the 12 assassins and whether their deaths balanced the scales. They did not. Nothing would bring Linda back. But maybe he had prevented other sisters and brothers from dying the same way. "Ghost sounds better than prison," Jake finally said. Blake nodded. "Good choice. Recover quickly, soldier. Your ship leaves in 2 weeks." The colonel left. Jake was alone with his thoughts once more. He had been a soldier, then a killer, and now he would be a ghost. No name, no history, no official existence. Just another face in the crowds that moved. 2 months after Jake Morrison disappeared from the medical station, the Galactic Trade Commission held a formal hearing about the Valdrine mining operations. The chamber was filled with representatives from dozens of species. News services broadcast the proceedings across hundreds of worlds. Everyone wanted to see how the commission would respond to the evidence Jake had gathered. The evidence was damning. Jake had collected ship logs showing Valdrine vessels entering restricted space without permission. He had communication records proving that Valdrine commanders knew they were attacking civilian targets. He had even captured several Valdrine crew members and recorded their confessions before releasing them unharmed. The commission reviewed everything carefully. Then they issued their judgment. The Valdrine Empire was fined an enormous sum of credits. They were banned from operating in several sectors of space for the next 50 years. They were required to pay reparations to every family that had lost someone in the attacks. Most importantly, the commission made it clear that corporate entities could not hide behind diplomatic immunity when they committed what amounted to acts of war against civilians. The rules were changing. The old ways of doing business were over. The Valdrine accepted the judgment without protest. They had no choice. Their reputation was already destroyed. Fighting the commission would only make things worse. Speaker Draven issued a public apology to humanity and to all the other species the Empire had wronged over the centuries. It was a historic moment. The mighty Valdrine Empire was humbled, brought low by the actions of a single human who refused to accept that his sister's death did not matter. But Jake Morrison knew nothing about the hearing. He was far away on a frontier world called New Kansas. The planet was newly settled, with only a few thousand colonists spread across vast prairies. It reminded Jake of pictures he had seen of old Earth before the cities covered everything. He was using a new name now. The government had given him identification papers that said his name was Danny Cooper. He had a job working security for a small farming cooperative. It was peaceful work, mostly checking fences and making sure automated harvesters were functioning properly. It was exactly the kind of quiet life he had wanted before Linda died. But Jake found he could not settle into peace as easily as he had hoped. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the faces of the 12 assassins. He remembered killing them one by one. He remembered the explosions, the gunfire, the careful planning required to stay alive against impossible odds. He did not feel guilty about their deaths. They had come to kill him, and he had defended himself. That was simple survival. But he also did not feel satisfaction. Revenge had not brought Linda back. It had not healed the hurt in his chest when he thought about her smile, her laugh, her dreams of growing gardens in space. 3 months into his new life, Jake was checking the eastern fence line when he noticed something unusual. There were marks in the dirt that did not belong. Someone had been watching the farm from the hills nearby. The marks were fresh, less than a day old. Jake's military training immediately took over. He checked his sidearm and scanned the area carefully. Someone was tracking him. Someone had found him despite his new identity. He followed the tracks back into the hills. Whoever had made them was good at moving quietly, but they had made a few small mistakes. A broken branch here, a disturbed rock there. Jake followed the trail for 2 hours until he found a small camp hidden in a canyon. A woman sat by a small fire, cooking something in a portable heating unit. She looked up as Jake approached, showing no surprise at all. She was human, probably in her 30s with dark hair pulled back in a practical braid. She wore civilian clothes, but Jake recognized the way she sat, the way her hand stayed close to the weapon on her belt. She was military or former military. "Hello, Jake," she said calmly. "Or should I call you Danny?" Jake kept his hand near his weapon. "Who are you?" "My name is Kate Sullivan. I work for a group that does not officially exist. We handle problems that governments cannot address through normal channels." She gestured to a spot across the fire. "You should sit down. We need to talk." Jake did not sit. "If you are here to arrest me, you should know I will not go quietly." Kate laughed. "Arrest you?" "Jake, we want to hire you." That made Jake pause. "What?" "The situation with the Valdrine proved something important," Kate explained. "It proved that sometimes one person with the right skills and the right motivation can accomplish what entire governments cannot. We have been watching you for months. We know what you did. We know how you did it, and we think those skills could be very useful." "I am done killing," Jake said firmly. "Are you?" Kate asked. "Because I have information about another corporation doing exactly what the Valdrine did. They are called the Hexian Collective. They have been raiding independent colonies in the beta sector. Hundreds of people are dead. The governments are too busy arguing about jurisdiction to actually help anyone." Jake felt anger rising in his chest. "That is not my problem. One of the colonies they hit was called New Garden," Kate continued. "It was a botanical research station. 53 people lived there. They were studying how to grow food in low-gravity environments. The Hexian Collective wanted the land for mining, so they destroyed the station and claimed it was a reactor accident." Jake's hands tightened into fists. A botanical research station, just like Linda had wanted to work at. Just like the dream she never got to fulfill. Kate could see she had his attention. "We cannot send military forces. We cannot use official channels. But we can send someone who knows how to fight corporations that think they are above the law. Someone who has already proven he can win against impossible odds." "Why me specifically?" Jake asked. "Because you fight for the right reasons," Kate said simply. "You did not kill the Valdrine assassins for money or glory. You did it for justice. You did it because someone you loved was murdered and nobody else would help. That is exactly the kind of person we need." Jake was quiet for a long time. He thought about his quiet life on New Kansas. He thought about checking fences and repairing harvesters. It was safe and peaceful and exactly what he had told himself he wanted. But he also thought about 53 botanists who died because a corporation wanted their land. He thought about families who would never get justice because politicians cared more about trade agreements than about human lives. What exactly are you offering? He finally asked. Kate smiled. Resources, information, support. We will find the targets. We will provide equipment and transportation. We will make sure you have everything you need to complete your missions. In return, you do what you do best. You make sure that corporations cannot murder innocent people without consequences. This is not legal, Jake pointed out. No, it is not, Kate agreed. But it is necessary. The galaxy is a big place, Jake. Governments cannot protect everyone. Laws cannot reach everywhere. Sometimes justice requires people willing to operate outside the system. Jake sat down across the fire from her. I need to think about this. Take your time, Kate said. But while you are thinking, you should know that the Hexian Collective is planning another raid next month. Another colony. More innocent people who will die if someone does not stop them. She handed Jake a data pad. It contained information about the Hexian Collective, their operations, their security forces, their planned attack. It was detailed and current, the kind of intelligence that should not exist outside of government databases. Jake looked at the information and felt the familiar weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. He had tried to walk away. He had tried to leave the violence behind. But the galaxy kept putting situations in front of him that he could not ignore. If I do this, Jake said slowly, I do it my way. No interference, no second guessing. You give me a target and the resources I need, then you get out of my way. That is exactly what we want, Kate replied. We are not interested in controlling you, Jake. We just want to point you at the right targets. Jake nodded slowly. I will think about it. Kate stood up and prepared to leave. My contact information is on that data pad. When you decide, let me know. But decide quickly. Those colonists do not have much time. She disappeared into the hills as quietly as she had come. Jake sat by the fire for a long time, staring at the data pad. He thought about Linda, and about all the other people like her who had died for corporate profits. He thought about justice and revenge and whether there was really any difference between them. Finally, he made his decision. He could not bring Linda back. He could not undo the past, but he could make sure that other families did not suffer the same way his had. He could be the sword that fell on those who thought themselves untouchable. Danny Cooper, the quiet security guard, would remain on New Kansas. But Jake Morrison, the ghost who hunted those who preyed on the innocent, would return to the stars. The Valdrine had learned their lesson. Now it was time for the Hexian Collective to learn theirs. The hunt was beginning again. 6 months after Jake Morrison accepted Kate Sullivan's offer, stories began circulating through the darker corners of the galaxy. Whispered conversations in station bars, encrypted messages on underground networks, tales of a ghost who appeared wherever corporations crossed the line into murder. The Hexian Collective was the first to experience what the Valdrine had learned. Their planned raid on the colony never happened. 3 of their security ships simply disappeared during the approach. The 4th ship was found drifting in space, its crew unconscious and its computer systems wiped clean. When investigators reviewed the security footage, they found a message written on the bridge wall in spray paint. Remember, New Garden. Remember what happens when you kill innocents. The Hexian Collective tried to determine who had attacked them. They increased security. They hired better mercenaries. They installed advanced sensor systems on all their ships. None of it mattered. 2 weeks later, their main mining facility in the Beta sector experienced a catastrophic accident. The reactor went critical and had to be evacuated. When engineers examined the systems, they found sophisticated sabotage. Someone had reprogrammed the safety systems to fail at a specific time. The facility was a total loss, costing the collective billions of credits. Another message was found, this time carved into a control panel. This is what you did to New Garden. This is justice, the pattern continued. Any corporation that targeted civilians, that murdered colonists, that placed profit above human life, eventually received a visit from the ghost. Sometimes it was sabotage. Sometimes it was direct confrontation. But the message was always the same. Human lives mattered. Murder would not be tolerated. Justice would be served. Jake worked alone, following the information that Kate Sullivan provided. She was true to her word. She never interfered with his operations. She simply identified targets and provided resources. Jake did the rest. He was careful to avoid killing when possible. Unlike his war against the Valdrine assassins, these operations were not about revenge. They were about prevention. Jake wanted corporations to fear the consequences of their actions, but he did not want to become a mindless killer. Most of the time, sabotage was enough. Destroying facilities and equipment sent a clear message without requiring bloodshed. But sometimes direct action was necessary. When Jake encountered mercenaries who were actively planning to attack colonists, he stopped them permanently. He felt no guilt about those kills. They were soldiers who had chosen to target civilians. They knew the risks. 1 year after his first mission for Kate's organization, Jake found himself on a space station called Frontier Hope. It was a civilian station that served as a trading hub for dozens of small colonies. Jake was investigating reports that a corporation called Stellar Dynamics was planning to seize control of the station through a hostile takeover. The station administrator was a woman named Patricia Hayes. She was in her 50s, gray-haired and tired-looking, but she had the determined eyes of someone who would not give up easily. Jake met with her in her office using his Danny Cooper identity. Stellar Dynamics has been buying up shares in the station for months, Patricia explained. They now own 40%. They are pressuring me to sell my controlling interest. If I refuse, they have threatened to crash the station's economy by pulling their contracts. What happens if they gain control? Jake asked. They will turn this station into a corporate facility. The independent traders and small colonists who depend on this place will be shut out. Docking fees will increase. Trade restrictions will be implemented. Within a year, dozens of small colonies will fail because they cannot afford to trade here anymore. That is not murder, Jake pointed out. That is just business. Patricia's eyes hardened. Look at the data, Danny. Look at what happens to colonies that cannot trade. They run out of food. They run out of medical supplies. People die. Stellar Dynamics knows this. They are counting on it. They want those colonies to fail so they can buy the land cheap and exploit the resources. Jake reviewed the information Patricia gave him. She was right. This was murder, just slower and more indirect than what the Valdrine had done. The end result was the same. Innocent people would die so a corporation could make profit. What do you want me to do? Jake asked. I want you to make them back off, Patricia said. I have heard rumors about a man who helps colonies when corporations threaten them. I am hoping those rumors are true. Jake studied her carefully. Why do you think I am that man? Because you asked the right questions, Patricia replied. Because you care whether this is murder or just business. A normal security consultant would not care about the moral distinction. They would just ask how much the job pays. Jake smiled slightly. Patricia Hayes was smarter than most people gave her credit for. The job does not pay anything. I do not work for money. Then what do you work for? Justice, Jake said simply. And prevention. I try to stop corporations from killing people. If I can help you, I will. Over the next 3 weeks, Jake investigated Stellar Dynamics thoroughly. He discovered that they were using illegal tactics to acquire station shares. They were bribing officials, threatening small shareholders, and manipulating market prices. More importantly, he found evidence that they had done this before at 3 other stations. In each case, dozens of colonies had failed within a year of the corporate takeover, exactly as Patricia had predicted. Jake compiled all the evidence and sent it to Kate Sullivan. She passed it along to journalists who specialized in exposing corporate corruption. The story broke across major news networks. Stellar Dynamics was suddenly facing criminal investigations on multiple worlds. Their stock price crashed. The shareholders they had been pressuring on Frontier Hope refused to sell. The hostile takeover failed. Patricia Hayes maintained control of her station. The small colonies were safe. But Stellar Dynamics was not happy about their defeat. They wanted revenge. They hired investigators to find out who had exposed their operations. It did not take them long to identify Danny Cooper as someone who had been asking too many questions. One night, as Jake was leaving Patricia's office after a routine security meeting, 3 men stepped out of the shadows. They were not subtle about their intentions. They had weapons drawn and murder in their eyes. Stellar Dynamics sends their regards, one of them said. Jake sighed. He had hoped to avoid violence on this station. But sometimes violence found him anyway. The fight was brief. The 3 men were corporate security, trained but not experienced in real combat. Jake disarmed the first one and broke his arm. He dodged the second man's shot and returned fire, hitting him in the shoulder. The third man tried to run, but Jake tackled him and knocked him unconscious. Station security arrived within minutes. Jake handed over the 3 men and provided evidence of their attempt to murder him on behalf of Stellar Dynamics. It was another scandal, another crime that would cost the corporation dearly. Patricia found Jake in the medical bay afterward, getting his knuckles bandaged. "Are you all right?" she asked. "I am fine," Jake replied. "This is not the first time someone has tried to kill me. Probably will not be the last. I am sorry I brought this trouble to you. You did not bring it. Stellar Dynamics brought it when they decided profit was worth more than people's lives." Jake finished with the bandages and stood up. "Your station is safe now. They will not try this again. The publicity would destroy them completely." "What will you do now?" Patricia asked. "Move on to the next problem," Jake said. "There are always more corporations that need to learn the same lesson." Patricia watched him prepare to leave. "The galaxy needs more people like you." "I hope not," Jake replied honestly. "I hope someday the laws will be strong enough and governments will be brave enough that people like me are not necessary. But until that day comes, I will do what I can." He left Frontier Hope the next morning on a transport ship headed toward the Outer Rim. Kate had already sent him information about his next target. A mining company was forcing colonists off their land using intimidation and violence. People were being hurt. Justice needed to be served. As Jake sat in the small passenger cabin watching the stars streak past, he thought about how his life had changed. A few years ago, he had been a soldier following orders. Then he had been a man seeking revenge for his sister's death. Now he was something else entirely. He was a guardian for those who had no other protection. He was justice for those the system had failed. He was the consequence that corporations feared when they thought about crossing the line into murder. The Valdrine Empire had learned their lesson when they sent 12 elite assassins to kill him. They had learned that humans were not as weak as they appeared. They had learned that some humans would fight back with everything they had when their loved ones were threatened. Now the rest of the galaxy was learning the same lesson. Corporations could not hide behind lawyers and politicians when they committed murder. There was someone watching. There was someone who would hold them accountable. Jake Morrison had become a legend without meaning to. Stories about him spread from station to station, growing with each retelling. Some said he was a super soldier created by the human military. Others claimed he was an artificial intelligence in a human body. A few even suggested he was some kind of avenging,